Hello, welcome. So today we're looking at r/MaliciousCompliance, a new one to the channel actually. I don't know who it was that I heard reading Malicious Compliance, but I wanted to do it too after I heard it. So I'm not sure. If I remember, then I don't know, I'll put it in the description. I am terrible. We're going in blind today. I haven't even glanced. Sometimes I'll glance at the posts just to see if they look worth reading. I've not even done that. So we're going in blind. I'll get rid of any ones that are crap. And we'll have fun. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in listening to today, then stick around and enjoy. And if you just heard that crack, that was my ankle. Old. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, please. I forgot to say please. I forgot to say that. So yeah, please do. First up, employers, careful what you ask for. I'm an emergency physician. I work in emergency departments in hospitals, an interesting speciality in medicine. Different patients every day, except for the frequent flyers, but that's another story. Now, especially in the wintertime, EDs? Oh! I thought they meant erectile dysfunction. I was going to say, what? Is that something you get a lot of in the winter? People get sad, their penises get sad. Oh my goodness. Okay, back in the zone. Emergency departments are full of people with usually long waiting times, and we take people in order of severity, not first come, first serve. So I'm at work and get a new patient. The charge says, needs a work note. I go into the cubicle and see a patient that is obviously ill. After 40 years of experience, I can size up patients pretty well from across the room. This woman was ill. Vitals were not good. Fever of 102 Fahrenheit. What does that equate to in ye old British Celsius? Wait there, we're gonna look because I want context here. Come on, phone, speed up, will ya? 2 Fahrenheit in Celsius. Ooh, 38.8. Ouch. Ooh, yeah, you're going to be getting sweaty. The works. The monitor shows her heart is okay, pulse is a little high, BP is a little low, high fever. Talking to me, she tells me she's got a cold. Now, I tend to appreciate it when patients just tell me the truth. She didn't claim to have COVID, pneumonia, anthrax, don't ask. Oh my God, but I want to ask. I really want to. Or anything but a cold, which, being a virus, there's not a hell of a lot I can do for her. So I ask why she came in. Turns out she's been ill for 2 days. Her fever is actually down with her taking Tylenol and drinking fluids. No kidding. And her employer wants a doctor's note for more paid time off. This woman waited in the emergency department waiting room for, checks the record, 5.5 hours to get a goddamn note for work. Not her fault though. It's her employer's. So I ask her how much time they will give her paid off. There's no limit, she said. I just need a doctor saying I need it. Oh, these employers are diabolical, aren't they? Got it. So she went home with a lovely note giving her 2 weeks off with pay and instructions to return for additional time off if she needs it to recover. I really hate employers that demand asinine notes like this. Fight the stupidity. Well, yeah, exactly, because when you've got a cold, it can go from mild to moderate to pretty severe. Like, you're not gonna be on death's door, but you're pretty poorly and, you know, standing up makes your head spin. Don't ask me how I know. And it's one of those things where you just can't be at work when you're like that. And making people go in to the doctors for a bloody note when you can clearly tell they're ill. And even if you can't, if they say they're ill, they're adults. It's so stupid because it takes up the emergency department's time, the GP's time, for something where the person knows they can recover at home. They just need the time to do it. It's so stupid. It's ridiculous. And this is why people in the A&E, nurses and doctors, are always complaining of people coming in with colds. This is probably why. And down in the comments, that kind of doctor says, I'm a physician in Brazil. Due to our labour laws, there's no absence for work without pay cut if you don't present a doctor's note. Some employers even demand ICD coding, which is unethical and abusive. I'm not sure what ICD coding is. I can only assume that that means that they want like a complete breakdown of what's wrong with the patient and what medications they're on, maybe. I'm just taking a wild guess here so I don't spend 20 minutes on Google again. I get a perverse pleasure when I can justify giving a longer leave to honest patients, together with a copy of the jurisprudence and how to talk firmly to their HR representative that they got no right to demand to know what the patient is on medical leave for. Okay, so yeah, that coding is for that then, I'm assuming. And then Rainbow Data says, use Z22.9, carryover infectious disease, unspecified, or X3 9.8, other exposure to forces of nature. I love it, yeah, because they're really not going to want to argue with that, are they? And then Hey Gay Hey says, other exposure to forces of nature, laughing my butt off. Have you ever had a diarrhea so strong it is classified as a force of nature you are exposed to? Apparently your patients did. And then Saturn Golf 96 says, yes, I have. I'm lactose intolerant and can't handle fried or oily foods. But damn it, I like fondue. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just gotta take it, roll with the punches, take the bad guts, and eat the cheese. Next up, don't want me to touch your PS5? Well, alright. I bought a PlayStation 5 for my cousin back in my home country last year. I live in the Middle East, and whenever I visit my family in my home country, I often go with gifts. I recently started on my first, somewhat well-paying job and decided to get some nice things for the family home. I got my little cousin brother a PS5. My cousin is 16. We had been playing on my account due to the lack of games in his. We hadn't had time to go and buy any that he liked yet, and his mum wouldn't let him go and buy any for himself till after the weeks of his exams, which were a couple of weeks after I had to return to the Middle East. The trip was nice, my cousin was very happy with the gift, we'd spend a few hours at night playing against each other on FIFA. Now, this one time my cousin was at school and I decided I'd hop on one of my games and finish the story. The game I was playing was God of War Ragnarok. Apparently, it was one of the games he wanted to play. Now, the issue was he saw me playing that game on his PS5 when he returned home from school and went apeshit. His words were, "Don't touch my PS5." He meant when he's not around, he wants to play the games himself and not get the saves messed up or something. But he didn't mention that at first. I told him this was my account. The saves are already on the cloud and connected to mine. He can get a fresh start on his account later. It's not a big deal. Yeah, and I mean, you bought it for him. And it's your account. So, tough titties. He said he didn't care and repeated that he didn't want me to touch his PS5 when I was at school. I tried to explain once again, and he screamed at me that, if that's all it is, then get your precious account off my PS5. At this point, I was done with his tantrum anyway. Cue malicious compliance. I deleted my account from his PS5 and told him I won't touch it anymore. He was smug about me taking the L then, but later that night, when he got around to try and play the games, well, all my games were now locked on his account. He really didn't think that through now, did he? He tried to access my account, but well, that's no longer on it. He doesn't know the password, and I have two-factor authentication anyway. He even went onto the store to check the price of the game he wanted to play, but well, what money was he going to use to buy them? Finally, he came up to me and nonchalantly asked me if I want to play FIFA together again. I smirked internally and responded that I won't touch his PS5. He can play on his own. He tried to convince me that it'd be fun. He said that he can beat me in a few matches and all that. I said the same thing. I'm not touching that PS5 again. He realised finally that he'd been effectively locked out of playing anything except Astro's Playroom for the next couple of weeks if I don't get my account on it again. His mum knew what had happened and had asked me to not put my account on it again anyway. He needed to focus on his upcoming exams. So I didn't. No matter how much he begged me, I let him stew with no games, with the PS5 teasing all the while. I enjoyed the rest of my vacation with the rest of my family. Yeah, I mean, there you go then. He would be at school anyway. What was the harm in you playing on it? You bought the bloody thing. He's just been a brat. And teaches him a lesson now, doesn't it? Down in the comments, Revengeful Cargo says, so, within days of you giving him a PS5, he's telling you, don't touch my PS5. That kid needs a serious attitude adjustment. And then ENG321 says, all kids need one at one point. They absolutely do. Being the producer of 2 pet DNAs, I can tell you for certain, they grow an attitude over the most stupid things sometimes, and you have to bring them back to reality. It is just the way they learn. Illuminatus Prime says, an attitude adjustment, not a PS5. Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I'd have taken the PS5, but, you know, I suppose this was better because now it's sat there staring at them and they can't use it. Mental Cut 8290 says, fair, realizing the consequences is the important part of growing up. It really is. It really is. And if you think back to when you were a kid, dear listener, I bet that you would agree there was a few times that you probably needed an attitude adjustment too. And yeah, lessons had to be learned. Because I know I did. I was a right bastard of a teenager. Next post. New rule, no shoes outside the door. Sure thing. So, my apartment complex had this unwritten rule where people left their shoes outside their doors. Nothing crazy, just a pair or two, and no one really cared. Until one day, management decided it was a problem. Hold on a minute. You leave your shoes outside your door? I'd be worried that someone would come and rob them. You know, one day my flip-flops are there, next day they're half-inched and I'll never see them again. I would be far too worried. You guys trust each other a lot. Out came the new policy. No personal belongings in the floor hallway. Alright, fine, no problem. I wasn't about to argue over a couple of shoes, but if they're gonna be strict about it, I'll follow the rule to the letter. Instead of leaving my shoes on the floor, I got myself a wall-mounted shoe rack. Yup, not on the floor equals not breaking the rule. And I wasn't the only one with that idea. A few neighbours saw it and thought, hey, that's actually kind of smart. Before long, the whole hallway started looking like a fancy little shoe store. Management wasn't happy, but technically we weren't breaking any rules. They huffed and puffed for a bit and then just gave up. A few weeks later, the policy magically disappeared, and now we're back to leaving our shoes outside. Just a little more organised this time. Playing devil's advocate, I could get why management would be like, hey, no personal belongings in the hallway, because it's a trip hazard, fire hazard, and it does leave them open and liable if something was to happen or, say, stolen. Like I say, I can't believe you just leave your shoes out in the wilderness like that. Those poor little shoesies. So I can get why. And also, I'm questioning why management wouldn't then absolutely just harass the hell out of you for putting holes in the walls to mount a wall-mounted shoe rack. Like, surely you'd be in more trouble for that. This is a weird story. This is just a weird one. And then down in the comments, Background Solid 8481 says, I'm confused. No personal belongings in the hallway. How does that make it okay to hang a shoe rack on your door? So not on the floor does not equal not breaking the rules. And then Niclo2K says, also, I'm confused how the building management were happy to allow people to install a wall-mounted storage outside of their own apartments. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. Like, I would thought that would be even more of a problem. This story is odd. This story's odd. It sounds almost made up, but who would make up a story about shoes in a hallway? Bye-bye money. I worked at what was a recently bankrupt large restaurant that was very strict with throwing things out if they were out of date. Their self-imposed shelf life was ridiculously low. This matters for later. Funny enough, the managers knew better. They were worried about food cost, so they would have us relabel an extra day or two. Yeah, I mean, if they're doing it being really stupid, then yeah. At one point, a temporary corporate DM took over duties for our location and ended up watching me change dates to keep things a bit longer. The next day, we had a random pre shift meeting where they brought up that they had noticed people relabeling products. They stressed that this was no longer acceptable. It's becoming abundantly clear why they are bankrupt. Cue malicious compliance. I had no problem following their rule. The same night at closing time, I went through every single thing I could find and get rid of it. Walk-in freezer, dry storage, the whole line. Anything that was labelled, and absolutely everything that wasn't labelled, easily threw out 3k worth of product. Of course, the next day they went apeshit about it. They called another pre-shift meeting. This time, just mostly going off on how much shit was thrown away. Once they were done ranting, without fixing the problem at all, I waited for the dinner rush to be over and went to the office to talk to them about it. Things got a little heated, but they eventually decided to go back to how things were before. Anyway, I'm happy they died out. They weren't worth the price, and even the reason the business started was kind of messed up. Well, I want to know what business it was. And then down in the comments, everyone's dream says, even though they went out of business, good job on them not serving out-of-date stuff to customers. Too many places would just straight up serve health hazards. I mean, yeah, definitely. Quite often there was that guy, wasn't there, who got fired from that coffee shop for outing them for using like spoiled milk and things like that. But at the same time, you can't run a business where you're throwing things away way before they're used by dates, served by dates, you know? Both ways are not good for business. And then 3M Monster? I don't know how to read that. If you had read labels at the grocery store, many companies have changed from used by to best by. The difference is that past the used by dates might get you sick. The best by date means a possible change in taste, quality, or colour. The restaurant I work at has sliced turkey. We have a used by of 48 hours. The meat is still safe to eat at 72, as long as it has stayed below 40°F. It may be a little dried out though. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, quite often I'll go in the fridge and there'll be like tomatoes that have gone past the use by date. I'll give them a squish, I'll give them a sniff, and if all seems well, I'll eat them. And I believe I have grown quite the iron stomach for it. I should touch wood right now because I'm probably going to end up getting food poisoning in the next few days by saying something stupid like that. Touching wood, touching the desk, touching the wood. Need my ID after surgery? Bet. Hello, I have no idea how to start this off, so I'll just give the context and jump in. Also, bit of a trigger warning, I do mention blood and drool, but that's about it, okay? Well, you've all heard that. Bit of a trigger warning there if you are squeamish. I, 24F, had been seeing the dentist more often because I now have insurance. The last time I went to a dentist was when I was about 14 or 15. My dentist said a lot of my teeth are salvageable, but I did need to get a lot of teeth pulled. 7 to be exact. Oh, goodness me, goodness me. I can't imagine what it's like to have one tooth pulled. 7? Oh my goodness, that sounds painful. Bless you. It took a couple months to get my teeth pulled and everything, and when it did, oh my lord, the front desk lady told me I'm gonna be on antibiotics and pain medication. I would hope a lot of pain medication for 7 teeth. Goodness me, that sounds really, really uncomfortable. I'm still kind of recovering. My gums are still pretty sensitive, but overall fine. My brother, 27M, was my ride, so I called him, fresh out of surgery, and he's like, "You done with surgery?" I responded, "Yeah, but my mouth was stuffed with gauze." "I have no idea what you said, but I'm assuming you said yes," says the brother. He came and got me, and the nurse and my brother had to help me in his truck. We went to the pharmacy, but they were on a lunch break. After waiting 30 minutes, their lunch was over. My brother left me in the truck and went into the convenience store. He was in there for a while, like 15 minutes. To most, that doesn't seem long, but to me, Since the anesthesia was beginning to wear off, I was squirming in discomfort. I bet you were. I bet you were. That just sounds so painful. Oh my goodness, I feel so sorry for the OP. While my brother was in the store, the pharmacist was giving him a really hard time, telling him that they need my ID and all that fun stuff. Cue the malicious compliance. My brother walked out, told me everything, and I began to cry. Just picture an adult woman with a baby face, swollen, delirious, in pain, and fresh out of surgery, looking like she was going to do the Chubby Bunny challenge. Anyway, my brother took me out of his truck, and he had to guide me. So, all the customers in the store, all they saw was a scrawny twig dragging a barely conscious noodle to the pharmacy. He sat me down in one of the chairs, and I handed him my ID. The pharmacist was about to give him a hard time again, but then he pointed in my direction. All he saw was a lost adult drooling and bleeding, clearly out of it, fresh out of surgery, and the look on his face was just glorious. He handed my brother my medication without much complaint, and we left. And before anyone gets onto my brother's case that he didn't need to drag me into the store, I want to make it clear even then I did not care about how silly I looked. I was too busy thinking about pink axolotls on stairs and how bad I needed a nap. Even looking back, I chuckled about it. Edit. I look away for like 15 seconds and this garnered a lot more traction than I thought it would. So I want to clear a couple things up. We're not mad at the pharmacist or anything, mildly annoyed at most. We did not know that the painkillers would be narcotics. Since I always pick up my dad's medication, none of us saw any reasons as to why they suddenly need my ID for my meds. Then my brother dropped me back at the motel. Story for another day. I just plopped onto the bed and my brother gave my dad my meds to make sure I took them. My dad saw that the meds were narcotics and he explained to us what they were. Was I listening to that conversation? Hell no, I was out like a light. Sorry for any confusion and poor wording on my part. I mean, yeah, to be fair, over here in the UK, I think pretty much for most things you can go and pick up someone's prescription for them. I know that I have picked up strong pain medication, like strong, we're talking like diazepam, things like that, for a friend before now who had had like a really bad back issue and couldn't make it there. And basically, the person picking up has to provide their ID, yes. And you have to provide, like, your details. But they just like, yeah, go on then, see you later. As long as you know the details, the address and the name and the date of birth of the person you're picking up for, like, they're really not that strict over here. I don't know if that's just in my county and if it changes in different counties, but yeah. I haven't had an issue with picking up meds for other people, and I've had to have people pick up meds for me before now, and they've never had issues either. So I'm not sure if it's just like maybe a thing in the US that you have to have an ID for it, but surely it makes sense to take the details of the person picking them up and obviously make sure that they know the details of who they're picking up for, because some people might not be able to pick up their medication and actually physically enter the chemist. Unless, of course, you can just take the ID in with you of the person you're picking up for. And then it's okay. And then that would make sense. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't live over there. And then down in the comments, Puzzled Velociraptor says, in my state, ID isn't required. However, at my chain retail location, it is required from the person in front of me. Yeah, that's what it's like in the UK. Anyone the patient trusts can pick up the med. We need to scan the pickup person's ID for safety reasons. People have claimed not to have gotten their meds before, and this ensures we know who picked them up, just in case. Yeah, like I say, this is what I've come across living in the UK whenever I've had to pick up for someone or they've had to pick up for me. It sucks you went through that. Wish it was a similar policy where we could have just shown his ID so you didn't have to go in. Yeah, I mean, I just don't get why they wouldn't have a policy like that. It doesn't make sense. Next post, the title to this one's just ridiculous. Put my cat to work. I got fired from a sales job by a supervisor who was systematically eliminating everyone and hiring in her sorority sisters. Oh, goody. What a knob. I had dark black uniform skirts, pants, and blouses that I'd been forced to purchase. When I was fired, they demanded the uniforms back. Excuse me? Nuh-uh, if you purchase those are yours to do with what you wish. I offered to keep the skirts and blouses that cost up to what I'd paid to date, a couple $100 worth, but they said no, demanding all items back and refused to give me a refund. That's terrible. They did say I could gather it all and bring it to them a couple of days later. After thoroughly reading my contract, I confirmed that I was only required to bring them back undamaged. It didn't say anything that they had to be clean. So, when I got home, I poured everything in a big bag and called my cat over. She was a long haired cat who coated everything I owned in white fluff. When she understood that I was giving her free rein to sleep on the clothes, she obliged. 2 days later, I dropped off a garbage bag filled with now white, fur covered, stinky clothes. The supervisor got annoyed, but I just told her that she might want to check the contract. These clothes were quite undamaged, just not clean, and that wasn't stipulated in the contract. I smiled sweetly at her and left the office. What you should have done, this is so disgusting, but I would find it so funny. What you should have done was mixed some cornstarch with water and splashed it on the clothes and then refused to say where that stain came from. Kitty did her job quite well, and she got tuna for dinner that night. I eventually won a small claims court case, getting my uniform money back. An all-around win. Absolutely, because you can't just whack it in the contract being like, oh yeah, you have to pay for this uniform, but we get it back. Like, no, that's stealing. Like, what? You can't just put something so ridiculous in a contract and expect it to hold. And on that note, we're going to leave it there for today. That last one was infuriating, like really infuriating. How dare they demand that their staff pay for their uniform and then try to demand it back? So basically, what they're doing is they're pulling a scam. Because whenever anyone leaves, they're obviously just selling other people's old uniform. So they're just taking money. It's a scam. Like, genuinely infuriating, that one. Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end today, then I appreciate you very, very much. I'd like to hear what you think of this subreddit. I think this subreddit's quite fun. I'd definitely look into it more. I'm hoping for some extra outlandish stories the more I look into it. But like I say, I kind of just did a little surface dig around because I didn't want to be looking in too much and spoiling the stories for myself. I wanted to experience it with you guys. But yeah, if you liked it, then give a little like and a subscribe. That would be very nice, and it helps you find your way back here. Other than that, I am going to get off. It is bedtime. Goodbye.